Happy September, friends, and happy fall. I know it's not technically fall yet, but in my heart, September 1st is always the start of fall. Fall is my favorite season to decorate for. I look forward to it all year long, so I am super excited to get started this year. For me, half of the fun of decorating is taking the time to find inspiration that really speaks to me. Every year I search out some new inspiration. I like to do like a little bit of a different theme each year while still reusing all of my decor. So inspiration really helps me sort of reimagine some of the stuff that I have used years and years and years, but in a new way. Now, I know most of us use Pinterest for inspiration, and lately I've heard quite a bit of talk about, just the changes on Pinterest. It feels like more and more there's just like a lot of ads on there, as well as just a ton of AI generated images. And it just feels like a little bit harder to find the same inspiration that you used to be able to kind of easily find on Pinterest. And I definitely understand the frustration. And so I thought it'd be really fun if I did all of the digging and brought you some of my favorite cottagecore inspired fall decor inspiration today. So let's dig in. Real quick, a note before we get started. I did do my best to try to find the original sources for these images. However, I have found that it is so tough these days to actually get down to an original source. Typically in the past, I have had good luck with using Google image reverse search to find sources, and that is just not working quite as well as it used to. In fact, I feel like just about maybe 5% of the time it actually finds the original source for me. I did try on like every single one of these images and very rarely was able to actually trace it all the way back. So I did credit wherever I could, but if you happen to see any of these images and you know the original source, please let me know. I would love to add proper credit in the description. But anyway, let's get started. We will get started talking about outdoor decor. Who doesn't love, or in my case, deeply envy one of those big, beautiful porches that you can just overfill with pumpkins? But even if you don't have one of those, I have a few ideas for how to take your outdoor spaces and make them feel a little cottagecore fall. Especially at the beginning of September when we're still sort of at the end of summer, summer's winding down. I love the idea of adding sort of green witch vibes to like a patio or a garden. I especially love the look of having sort of a cauldron looking planter. You could paint a planter that's in a similar shape, or you could go get a cauldron inspired planter, but either way, just kind of having that overflowing with the end of summer greenery. I think that's so fun and witchy, and you can add some old like witchy brooms just to like really up the vibe. Even without a big front porch, you can always just sort of like let your pumpkins line the side of your home. I think it's so fun, and just like let it feel a little bit eclectic, like you just kind of threw them there. I think it's so pretty. And I always feel like the more sort of eclectic and thrown together and casual, the more cottagecore things look. And since we're talking about pumpkins, I think if you're going for that cottagecore look specifically, I love the look of very mismatched pumpkins. So I know some decor styles love to stick with like just one type or one color of pumpkin, like maybe all white pumpkins or all heirloom pumpkins. But I think if you're going for that cottagecore look, just mixing and matching, having all different types and varieties and colors and just kind of throwing them all together, that's the best way to get that sort of whimsical cottagecore look. If you do have a covered porch, I think adding elements like baskets as well as additional flowers. Obviously, mums are a classic. You can get them in a bunch of different colors, and I really think going with that mix match vibe is the way to go with that. But also adding in some greenery like fall cabbages in all different colors, I think are really beautiful, and they add a little bit of a more whimsical touch. For a fun spooky element, I am totally obsessed with these like rattan bats and witch hats from Terrain and Anthropology, which, if you didn't know, they're basically the same store, but they are so much fun. They're so beautiful. And I think that they have a little bit more of a cottagecore feel than the traditional like, bats that you find at like Spirit of Halloween and stuff like that. These just like have a little bit more of an organic feel, but obviously those are rather expensive. So you can also always opt for rattan pumpkins to add a little bit of a different feel in there. They maybe aren't spooky, but they're a lot easier to get your hands on than the Anthropology and Terrain bats and witch hats. The rattan pumpkins, I feel like I always see them at most big box stores as well as craft stores like every single year. So you can usually get them fairly affordably and they're available a lot more places. I know we've already touched on pumpkins just a little bit, but let's talk about decorating pumpkins. I am completely obsessed with these fairy cottage pumpkins. You can do them either with real pumpkins or faux pumpkins. You can get the carvable pumpkins at the craft store and make these with that. I just think they're so much fun and they obviously have such a cottagecore vibe. You can really make them your own, and I feel like they would also be really fun to do like a craft night with your friends and make these. And if you use a faux pumpkin, you can reuse them in your decor year after year, and they're just so much fun. I also love the look of these witch pumpkins using like carrots or turnips as noses. I think they're really adorable, and I could definitely see doing these with kids. Like, it's a fairly simple craft to do. But if you are like me and you are not a big fan of carving pumpkins, a little too messy, a little too much of a hole to do, then I think painting pumpkins is always such a beautiful option. I found some really beautiful examples, but don't put pressure on yourself. I think you can just sit down and enjoy yourself and just really take your time, maybe paint some flowers or just whatever comes to mind. Now, I talked about how books are just a staple of cottagecore decor in my Cottagecore 101 video, and that goes extra for the fall, I think. Personally, I like to collect specifically vintage books in autumnal colors throughout the year and put them aside specifically for my fall decorating. I just think it is so fun to do big stacks of books and sort of just stick them here, there, and everywhere. They are a perfect filler if you're like not sure what to do in a specific spot. Maybe just stick a few books there. They're the perfect gap filler. Obviously, you can usually get tons of books at most thrift stores, but if you're specifically looking for older ones and in specific colors, used bookstores are great, but also antique stores generally have quite a few vintage books. And a lot of times I found that a lot of antique stores will actually like organize them by color, which is really helpful if you're looking to like match them with some of your fall decor colors. I think dried florals are such a beautiful touch. They add such like a nice, delicate touch, but also just like this beautiful texture that you might not get in other types of decor. It really feels like you're kind of bringing in some of those crunchy fall leaves inside your house. I especially love the look of dried hydrangeas and even roses paired with pumpkins. I think they're so beautiful, but I also adore dried baby's breath. And what I really love about it too is that it's generally very accessible and usually fairly cheap. Dried branches and vines are also just another great touch. They also can kind of give you a little bit more of a spooky touch depending on how you use them. You can kind of mix them with pumpkins to kind of do a more elevated but like organic look, or you can style them in like apothecary jars to get that really witchy vibe. And for a really dramatic moment, you could add some dried leaves and florals around a doorway or a mantelpiece. And I feel like that's just like such a showstopper, but also so beautiful and feels so natural. And it's just like a great cottagecore feel to like bring the outside inside. Okay, let's talk real quick about mushrooms specifically, because I feel like mushroom decor had its heyday last year. Like, it was the big trend of 2023 fall decor. But in the end, it is just such a great cottagecore staple. Like, mushrooms, they're here for forever for the cottage girlies. They can add just like a really fun whimsical touch, whether just mixed into your decor or making like a whole centerpiece on your table out of them. They're just like really fun, and they definitely add more of that organic feel that we've been talking about. Now, if you're a cottagecore girly, but you also love spooky decor, I have a few more ideas for you to add in some spooky elements. I love sprinkling sort of like dark organic elements to get a little bit of that spooky vibe. So, you know, blackbirds or moths or black butterflies I created last year, and they were still one of my favorite pieces of decor, and I can't wait to put them out. And I still love the floating candles trend. I think it does tend to have a little bit more of a dark academia vibe to it, but I think that you can make it feel very cottagecore by pairing it back with, you know, organic and delicate, like more feminine touches, like those dried florals and, you know, old vintage books that maybe aren't, you know, too academia looking, and maybe even putting some bows in there, since we all love bows this year, right? Now, for kitchen specifically, I really love the look of just like an abundant overflowing with pumpkins and adding in some like really soft and cozy touches, like even a quilted tablecloth would be really beautiful for fall. I also recently got a blue floral pattern, like linen tablecloth for fall, and I kind of just like love how it looks paired back with pumpkins. I think it adds like a little bit more of a feminine touch that feels very cottagecore, while also feeling like a little bit unique and just like a little bit different. In the bedroom, of course, pile on the blankets, do lots of quilts, lots of big fluffy blankets, knitted throws, plaids, all of the fun stuff. I think, you know, just don't be afraid of mixing and matching your textiles and your patterns, and just make it as cozy as possible. And for the living room, ambient lighting is king in the fall. I'm just going to say it, a cottagecore home like never turns on the big lights, right? I'm just kidding. But I do really think that like setting the mood with soft lighting is really the key to making a house feel extra cozy and cottagecore in the autumn. So that is what I have for you today. I hope you got inspired. I hope you're excited for fall. Let me know your plans. Have you started decorating? Do you like to wait until the official solstice? Where are you at with your decorating? Let me know below. So personally, I like to decorate in sort of like 2 different phases. So I have like my September, more like cozy fall decor phase, and then closer to October, I like to actually pull out all of my like more Halloween spooky decor. I think I just love to basically be decorating nonstop all fall long because I just love it so much. But I'm already sort of looking at my inspiration for my spooky decor, so let me know if you'd be interested in seeing what I'm doing with that. I will be back very soon to show you my actual fall decorating and what I have done so far. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. We're gonna do some really fun stuff this fall. I'm really excited. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you are having a lovely day, and I will see you next time.